Today's daf, Be'ezus Hashem, is Masechta Bava Metzia, daf Pei Gimel. And we're starting from the middle of daf Pei Beis Amid Beis, Pei Gimel Amid Beis. Okay, make it bigger. All by Rabbi Loza Barab Shimon. Okay, Rabbi Loza Barab Shimon. And so here we go. Oh, okay. So we're up to over here, not over here. Sholach Lei. Okay, let's Shalach Reb Shua bar Mikarche. Let's just align above. So basically, what the Gemara said before, this Rabbi Loza, the son of Reb Shimon ben Yochai, and if you ever went to the keva of Reb Shimon ben Yochai, you always stopped right next to him is his son Rabbi Loza bar Reb Shimon. And the Gemara tells us a fascinating thing that he became a police detective because he was invited to become a police detective because of his fine detective skills. And he was able to catch many Jews and give them over to the government, to give them over to the government for death. Basically, he was what you would somewhat call a moiser. But let's see what the Gemara says. So I see Rab Loza ben Shimon. They brought Rab Loza, the son of Rab Shimon ben Yochai. The Kotov is Ganovi v'Azel. He was going about his job of catching Jewish ganovim, and one amongst the people that he caught were Jewish ganovim, and he would give them over for arrest. Shalchalei Rabbi Shua ben Karcha. Rabbi Shua ben Karcha said, "Choimitz, you are vinegar, ben yain, the son of wine." In other words, your father is such a great tzaddik, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, and you're just vinegar. You're destroying yourself. How long are you going to continue with this profession of giving over the nation of the Jewish people, the nation of God, for the firing squad? So he sent back. He said, "I'm not doing anything wrong, right? I'm getting rid of the bad Jews, the thorns from God's vineyard." Shalach lei. So the Rabbi Shua ben Karcha told Rabbi Loza ben Shimon, Yovai bala kerem b'yichales kaitzev. Let the owner of the vineyard, which is God Himself, take care of those thorns. In other words, that's not your business. You're not the policeman over the Jewish people to get rid of the bad Jews.
You're not God's policeman.
Yeah. So one time, Paga be'hau kaivis. Rabbi Loza ben Shimon met a guy who's a washer. In other words, he's a laundryman. Karye, he called him. He was so angry at what Rabbi Loza ben Shimon was doing. He called him Choimitz ben Yain. Called him also, you vinegar son of wine. So he insulted the police officer. Amar. So as Rabbi Loza ben Shimon said, Midachatzev kulahai, since he was such a brazen person to call me Choimitz ben Yain, Shma mina rishihi. He must be an evil person. Amalahu, he told his henchmen, his fellow officers, Tifsuhu, put him into custody. They arrested the guy. After his mind settled down, he felt bad. Azul Basrei Lepruke. He wanted to redeem him, take him out of prison. It was not possible to do that. And because they condemned the person to death. And even Rabbi Loza ben Shimon didn't have the power to release him. Kari Alai, so Rabbi Loza ben said about this person, if you watch what comes out of your mouth, you save yourself from a lot of tsaris. In other words, he brought it upon himself by insulting me, by calling me a choimitz ben yain. Zakafu, they hung the person. Anyway, they hung this person. Come to Sizikife v'kabachi. Rabbi Loza ben Shimon felt so bad. He was standing by the pole where they hung him, and he was crying. He felt bad. Amr lei. So some of the people who knew Rabbi Loza ben Shimon told him, Rebbe, don't feel so bad. This guy that you hung, Shehu ubenoi balu nar moirasa b'yom kippurim. Him and his son had relations with a girl that was engaged on Yom Kippur. Hashmish on Yom Kippur and Ashish Ish. So such a tzaddik that got hung. So he said, he put his hand on his stomach and he said, Omar, Sisu b'nei Maya Sisi, be happy, my intestines, be happy. Why was he putting his hands on his intestines? Because he wanted to make sure that when he dies, he's going to be such a tzaddik that his body is not going to decompose. Only somebody who did Averis, their body decomposes. So he said, I didn't do an Avera. Actually, this person deserve death. And he was so happy to hear that. And he said, Mas vekishlachem kach, vadoyis shlachem alachas kama v'kama. Madach, he said to himself, even when I was in doubt that I made a mistake, it turned out I didn't make a mistake. When I'm sure that somebody is a ganef and I have him arrested, certainly I'm not making a mistake. So therefore, he looked back on all his arrests and he didn't feel bad about one of them. Muftachani bechem, I'm so guaranteed. She'ein rima v'saleya shaletas bechem. No worms or maggots are gonna take possession over you. In other words, my body is not going to decompose. But he wasn't sure about that. So he wasn't settled. He wanted to test it out. Does his body decompose? Now, how do you test if your body is going to decompose after you die? So Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon had this good idea. Ashkiyuhu sama deshensa. They gave him to drink anesthesia. Sama is medicine, deshensa, that puts you to sleep. And they performed a surgery on him. And since he was a very fat person, here they brought him into a house that there was no, that was sterile, like an operating room made of marble, that there's no bad air in that room. And that they and they ripped open his stomach. He was a fat person. They brought out rolls and rolls of fat from him. And they put it in the sun of Tammuz and Av. It didn't become spoiled. So the Gemara, so he saw. So the Gemara says, "Kol tarba nami leisriach." Any fat that you put in the sun is not going to spoil. So he says, "You're right. Kol tarba leisriach." All fats are not going to decompose in the sun. But shuraiki, sumaki, the red veins, the red sinews, masriach, will decompose, will become soiled. So, and hacha, and by the case of all the fat, they while he was alive, they took out all this inside, the fat inside of him. Afagav the ika shurukaya sumaiku, even though they had like red veins in there, like masriach, it didn't decompose, it didn't make smell. So therefore, when he did this self-test and he found out that he's not going to decompose, Kariya Nafshi, he called about himself, my soul, my body can rest comfortably. I'm happy that I didn't do an Averia. Now, he wasn't the only police officer amongst the Tanoim. Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yosi, even Rabbi Shmuel bar Yosi, Mata Kihai Ma'aseh Liyadi. We're up to Teidal Ramad Aleph. He also became a police officer. Paga by Eliyahu. So Eliyahu Novi met Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yosi, and he said, how long are you going to be doing this, giving the nation of God up for capital punishment? Amalei, so Rabbi Shmuel said, my Abbot. He told Eliyahu Novi, what should I do? Hamana the Malkahu. I'm doing the command of the king. And this is what I'm following orders. So therefore, don't blame me. Amalei, so Eliyahu said, Avuch Arak Lasya at Arak Lulutkia. Your father had a similar problem. He was put into a difficult position, and he ran to a place called Asya. You should run to a place called Lutkia. Now the Gemara says fascinating things, and it's hard to understand what the point of this is. But listen to this. There are two people that we just learned, Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yosi and Rabbi Elazar bar Rabbi Shimon. They were extremely obese. That the Gemara says, Ki have mikloi Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Elazar bar Rabbi Shimon, when they both were standing right facing each other, bahadei edadi, so there was a space because their stomachs are too large. And underneath, have a oil bakri de turi benayo. A pair of oxen would be able to pass underneath them. And they wouldn't touch. In other words, they were so wide from each other that two oxen could pass underneath their stomachs, and they wouldn't be touching. So if you're a very fat person, the question is, how do you have intercourse? So Amalahu Ahu Matrinisa, this Goyish lady said to this Rabbi Elazar bar Rabbi Shimon, or to Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yosi, B'neichem einechem shelechem. Your kids are not yours. Why? Because how did you have relations with your wife? You're so fat. Amrullah, so they told her, Shalehen, Godol Mishalanu. Our wives are even fatter. So you have a bigger question. Kolshkein. Certainly, in other words, Kolshkein, that she wants, she's still attracted to us, and she'll figure out a way for us to have relations with her. Ike de Amri, others say, depending on the size of the person, that is his power. In other words, he was basically saying, although we look fat, but our aver, right? The aver, the organ that we have relations with, is bigger than the normal person's, and therefore it's not a problem for us. Ike de Amri, others says, Hachi Amrele, Ahava de Chekes as a basar. When you have because they desired so much to love, they were able to look past their obesity. In other words, the husband and wife, they were so in love that we were able to look past our obesity and have relations. Says the Gemara, Bechlal, she was asking such a not classy question. So the Gemara says, "V'lama lula durile." Why do you answer such a question? Well, Ksiv, the person says, "Al tal kisil kivaltoi." Don't answer a fool according to his foolish questions. Answers the Gemara, they really didn't want to answer the question, but they had to explain to her of the size of their organs, so to speak. So people should not. Once she starts this rumor, people are saying, "Oh, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon's son is not really his son; it's the postman." So Amar Rabbi Yochanan, the Gemara says, Averei de Reb Shmuel Bar Yosi, the organ Reb Shmuel Bar Yosi is kechemes bas teisha kabin, like a jug that holds 9 kabin, a large jug. Amar Rapapa said, Averei Rabbi Yochanan, the size of the organ of Rabbi Yochanan was kechemes bas chameshes kabin, was the size of a jug that holds 5 kabin. Amrila and others say bas shloishes kabin, that it could hold 3 kabin. That Papa Goofy, Papa's organ, is aver, because again, these people were very fat, is kidikuri da harpanai, and like the baskets that they make in the city called Harpanai, which probably holds like 2-3 kabim in there. So Gemara says like this: Amar Rabbi Yochanan said, "Ano ishtayari mishapir Yerushalayim." I'm the last remaining handsome people from Jerusalem. From the time of the temple till the destruction of the temple, they had a few handsome people. Rabbi Yochanan said, "I'm the last. I'm like the remaining people from Yerushalayim is a place known for its intelligence, but it's also known for the people, the handsomeness of the people." So the Gemara says, "Hi man, the Meria Mechse Shufra Rabbi Yochanan." If you wanted to see how beautiful Rabbi Yochanan is, nice kasa, you should bring a cup, bay silka. You should bring a silver cup from the smithy. A silver cup. And it's like shiny. And fill it up with seeds of pomegranates, red pomegranate seeds. Then kalila, and then you should make you have a kalila devarde and bring some red roses around the lip of that vessel. The noisu ben shim shalatula, and put it between the sun and the shade. That sparkle that you'll see ain't shufari de Rabbi Yochanan. So again, what the Gemara says is that you bring a shiny silver cup, and you just made it, and fill it up with red pomegranate seeds, and place it like a little red roses around the lip of the cup, and position the cup between the sunlight and the shade, and the shine that comes from that cup. That is the semblance of how Rabbi Yochanan's beauty looked. The Gemara is just telling you how gorgeous and what a shine these Amoraim had from their faces. So the Gemara says like this, Eini. The Gemara says, V'omamar, it can't be that Rabbi Yochanan was so beautiful. Because the Gemara says, Shufr de Rav Kahana, the beauty of Rav Kahana was Me'ein Shuf de Rabba Bo, was like just a little bit of what Rabba Bo looked. Rabba Bo was even more handsomer. Shufr de Rabba Bo, the handsomeness of Rabba Bo, was Me'ein Shufr de Yaakov Avinu, was the handsomeness of Yaakov Avinu. Shufr de Yaakov Avinu, Me'ein Shufr de Adam Arisha. The handsomeness of Yaakov Avinu was like Adam Arisha. So it's listing the most handsome people that ever cross planet Earth. In other words, for the Jewish people. Adam, Yaakov, Rabba Bo, Rav Kahana. And so if you're listening to the top 10 handsomest people, Rabbi Yochanan didn't make that list, so he must have been not so handsome. Answers the Gemara, the reason why he didn't make that list, a very interesting thing. Shani Rabbi Yochanan was different. The Hadras Panim Leihava. Rav says that he didn't have a beard. For some reason, he couldn't grow a beard. And therefore, he's not part of that list. We're listing people that had beards. Rabbi Yochanan have an Osel V'Yosef Ashar the Tvila. Rabbi Yochanan would sit at the ladies' mikveh. And when they would come out at night, Amar, and he would say, mitzvah, when the Jewish girls finished the tefillas mitzvah, livku ubi, they should meet me. They should have handsome children like me. Gemiri araisa kavase, and they should have children that know how to learn Torah like me. In other words, when the girls left the mikvah and they looked at Rabbi Yochanan, and so that later that night when they had relations with their husband, it was like a motivation to have a child like Rabbi Yochanan, as handsome and as someone who can learn Torah like Rabbi Yochanan. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbanim said, aren't you concerned about an ayin hara? So many people looking at your beauty, at your handsomeness. So Amalahu, so Rabbi Yochanan said, Ano Mazar de Yosef Kasina. I come from Shevet Yosef. And Shevet Yosef, there's no such a thing of an ayin hara. Diksiv bein Paris, Yosef bein Paris ali oyim. For Amar Rababo, al tikri ali oyim, elu ulai oyim. Don't call it ali oyim, but call it ulai oyim. That means Yosef was above, much more than above, than the ayin hara. He was like, ayin hara didn't affect him. Rabbi Yosi bar Chanina Amar Mahacha. Rabbi Yosi bar Chanina says over here, "V'yidgu l'roiv b'kerev haaretz, ma dagam shebayam mayim mechasen oisem, vein ayin shalatus behem, avzar shel Yosef ein ayin shalatus behem." When Yaakov blessed Yosef's children, he said they should be like fish of the sea, and just like fish of the sea, when you look at the water, you can't really see fish. So also, when you look at the people of Yosef, from the Shevet of Yosef, the power of the eye will not have an effect on them. So Rabbi Yochanan wasn't afraid of an ayin hara, so he went out in public and to show off how handsome he is. So the Gemara tells us a story. Yom Echad, there was a story one day, Havakosacha Rabbi Yochanan b'Yarden. Yochanan was swimming in the Yarden, the Jordan River. Chazi Rish Lakish ushvar leYarden Abasrei. Rish Lakish, who was the head of the gang, and he was a vandal, and he jumped after the Yarden in order probably to attack Rabbi Yochanan. Amalei, so Rabbi Yochanan said to him, you have such power, Rish Lakish, it would be best to use your strength, your physical strength, to learning. Amalei, so Rish Lakish said to Rabbi Yochanan, Shufrach l'nashe, your handsomeness, you're better off to marry, having relations with a lot of women. So each one was complimenting each other. Amalei, so Rabbi Yochanan said to Rish Lakish, if you're going to do tshuva and break away from the gang that you're a part of, I'm going to give you my sister, who's even more beautiful than me, as a wife. So Rabbi Rish Lakish took on the deal. He said, okay, I'm going to become about tshuva. The Gemara said that he wanted to turn around. Rish Lakish wanted to grab his clothing to get out of the Jordan River, and he couldn't. He found that he was too weak to even swim back to the shore, because once he accepted upon himself sincerely that he's going to commit his life to learning Torah, Torah takes away your energy. Somehow Torah takes away a person's energy, and therefore you need to overcome the sluggishness of the Yetzer Hara. And even just committing yourself to learning Torah, already Rish Lakish was not the same powerful person that he was when he first jumped into the Jordan. So he has Rabbi Yochanan, who is his teacher now, to make him a Baal Tshuva. So he says, Akriyi, he taught him Chumash, Vasniya, and he taught him Mishnayos. V'shavyei gav Rabba, and Rish Lakish grew into this great person of stature. Yom Echad, having mepalge b'bei midrash. One time they had an argument in the Beis Medrash, and Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish became equal to Rabbi Yochanan. That's how much he grew in learning. And they had a machlekes, Hasayev, Hasakim, Hapinyim, Hareimech, Magyag, Malkotzim, Me'emasay, Mekabel Tumah, Meshas Gemar Melachton, Me'emasay Gemar Melachton, Rabbi Yochanan, Mishitzarf, Mekivshin, Rish Lakish, Mitzach, Seichen, B'mayim. They had an argument about in Masechta Kelim. Rabbi Yochanan said something, and Rish Lakish said something else. When is the Gemar Melacha of a Keli? Whatever the machlekes was, somehow Rabbi Yochanan made a comment to Rish Lakish, like taunting him. Amalei listoi b'listoi yada. A person who was a robber should know how robbers deal. Amalei, so Rish Lakish felt insulted by that remark. And he said, Ma ahantale, what did I gain from becoming a frum Jew, of becoming a Baal Tshuva? Hassam, before I was a Baal Tshuva, Rebbe Karile. They called me the master. I was the head of my gang. And I was the head of I was the Don. Hacha, Rebbe Karile. And now also, as a learning Jew, they call me a Rebbe. In other words, I don't get any schar in this world. So Rav Yochanan explained to him, you benefited because now you're under the wings of the Shekhinah, and you feel more closer to Hashem as being a frum Jew than in your previous position. Somehow you're connected under the wings of the Shekhinah. Anyway, Chalash started Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan felt very bad that Rabbi Shlokish was made a comment back that he said, it didn't pay to become frum, so to speak. So Rabbi Yochanan felt bad. Chalash Rish Lakish. So Rish Lakish got sick. So now, remember, Rish Lakish is married to the sister of Yochanan. Asa Achte Kabachye. So the sister of Yochanan cried to Rabbi Yochanan and said, Amalei Aseh B'Shvil B'ni. Heal my husband for the sake of my son. But Rabbi Yochanan somehow was insulted by this remark, and he didn't want to pray for the refuah of Rish Lakish. Amallah, he said to Azvi Yisemech Ani Achai. Even if they're going to be left as orphans, I'm going to supply for them. Don't worry, you don't need a father. So she said, but Aseh B'Shvil Almanusi, pray because I'm going to remain a widow and I'm not going to have anybody to protect me. Amalah, so Rabbi Yochanan said, your widow should rely on me. In other words, he was basically using a pasuk to say that even if the worst happens, I'll be taking care of you. But I am not praying for the refuah of Rish Lakish. So the Gemara says that's what happened. Rav Shimon Lakish passed away. Rabbi Yochanan was very upset that he lost his best friend. Amar Rabbanim, man lezer ledaite. Who's going to calm Rabbi Yochanan down? Nezer Rabbi Elazar ben Padas. So Rabbi Elazar ben Padas should go. The Mechadim Shmaitza, that will help him with the learning, sharpen the learning of Rabbi Yochanan. Azul Yosef Kameh. So Rabbi Elazar ben Padas sat before Rabbi Yochanan, and basically he was a replacement for Rish Lakish. Whenever Rabbi Yochanan would say something, a statement, Amalei, so Rabbi Elazar ben Padas would say, "Oh, that's a very good statement." Tana de Messiah law. I have a brisa that agrees with you. So what you're saying, Rabbi Yochanan, is making sense. So Rabbi Yochanan got frustrated with this replacement, Rabbi Elazar ben Padas. At Bar Lakisha, are you like Rish Lakish? Bar Lakisha, the son of Lakish, Kava Amina Milsa. When I ever say something, have a makshe li eser rabah kush yose. He would ask me 24 questions. And I had to figure out 24 answers. And therefore it widened the learning. In other words, he didn't agree with me. Everything I said, Rish Lakish said the opposite. That's what a friend is. And you're trying to say, oh, I have a brisa to support you. What kind of friend is that? I don't need somebody to support what I'm saying. I myself do not know that I'm saying something good. So Rabbi Yochanan basically lost his best friend. He was ripping his clothing. Now you have to understand, Rabbi Yochanan lost 10 children in his lifetime. He wasn't somebody who didn't have tragedy, and yet to get when his friend Rish Lakish passed away, he couldn't get past that. The Kabachi v'Aman, he would cry, "Hey Chat Bar Lakisha, hey Chat Bar Lakisha, where are you, Rish Lakish? Where are you, Rish Lakish?" He kept screaming, he screamed too much, he lost his sanity. So now how is he going to live? The rabbi started to pray for Rabbi Yochanan so that that he should pass away. They said that for him it wouldn't pay to live like this. So that's how Rabbi Yochanan passed away. Now the Gemara goes back up to Pedal Ramabes, and Vafila Hochi Loisamach Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon Medaite. Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon didn't, felt his conscience was bothering him that he was a police officer causing people to become arrested. Kabel alai Yisure. So he took upon himself suffering. He wanted to suffer. So I don't know how he brought suffering upon himself, but the Gemara says that Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon, every night, he would bring 60 felt sheets to be under him. In other words, because he felt that his body is going to bleed at night. Letzafra in the morning, Nagdemi to say they took from underneath Shiti Mishichle Dama Bakiva. They took 60 basins of blood and pus. Somehow his body had holes in it and started leaking blood and pus throughout the night. So Limchar, the very next day, Avdelay, he had some anemia, I don't know what it is. Limchar, in the next morning, Avdelay Devisi, his wife made him Shitamine 60 types of lifta, of types of food you make with figs. Figs somehow restores a person's health. And he would eat 60 figs every morning, Ubari, and he felt healthy. And this happened nightly. But the Shavka lay the visi lemepek lemei midrasha. His wife did not let him go to the base medrash. Why? The rabbi should not put pressure on him because he's a sick man. So she would not allow him to go to the base medrash to learn. Learn at home. Ba'orte amalahu, at night, before he went to sleep, he would say to the suffering that he wanted to bring upon himself, Achai, my brothers, Berea, my friends, Bayu, come. I'm going to sleep now. Take apart my body. But Safra Amalahu, but in the morning he would say, Zili, you have to go away now. Whatever who's bringing on my suffering, you have to disappear now. Because I can't learn if I suffer during the daytime. Yom Echad, one day Shema Deves, his wife heard that the suffering was not a natural suffering. It was a suffering that he somehow invoked, the shadim, I don't know what it was, to start eating at his body every night. Amr so she said, you're bringing it upon yourself, all this suffering. You're destroying the money of my father. Apparently, Reb Elazar Bar Shimon married a very rich lady, and the food that he had was really from her. And she's using all that food so that he can become better every morning. But he was the one that's causing himself all this suffering. Imrada, so she rebelled against him, and she went back to her father's house. Okay, so now his wife left him. Basically, Salika, she left. We're going to stop in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just to want to finish the story. Salika, and there, all of a sudden, no one's there to take care of Reb Elazar ben Shimon. So he had 60 sailors show up at his house. They brought to him Shitin Avde, 60 slaves, Kinekite Shite Arnake, each one was holding 60 purses of money. The Avdile, they made for him Shite Mini Lifta, they made for him the 60 types of fig food, and so he can restore his health in the morning, and he would eat it. And they stayed with him. Basically, these people, these sailors, were out stuck in the ocean, and they said that in a storm, and they said that if God will save us in the name of Reb Elazar Bar Shimon, we're going to do Reb Elazar Bar Shimon a favor. And just when his wife, Reb Elazar Bar Shimon's wife, left him, these sailors showed up and took over what the wife was doing, restoring his health every morning. Yom Echad, one day, Amar Lebrate, she was curious how her husband is doing. She said to her daughter, Zili Baki Bavuch Maika Ovid Hidana, go check out your father. What's he doing now? Asi, she checked out her father. Amar La, he said this to her, Zili Imr Le'imach, go tell your mother, Shaloni Gadol Mishalahem, that the money I have now is greater than the money that you brought in from your fathers. And it's the schus of my learning. Somehow, learning Torah will supply you with parnasa, and therefore he didn't need his wife's money. He found another way to get the medication that he needs, the foods that he needs. He would eat and drink and become healthy. And he would go out to the beis medrash to learn. So we'll stop. 2 more lines. They brought before him 60 questions of a woman's blood, underwear of blood. Is it tame? Is it nida or not? Taharinu, he was matar all 60 of them. He knew how to read blood. And the Rabbanan were nervous about him, and they said, you looked at 60, underwears, and you said all of them are tahar, they're not dam nida. You don't have one doubt. He said to them, if I am 100% right, all these people should have boy children. From these 60 questions, one of them should have a female. In other words, the proof is that I'm guaranteeing that all these women are going to have males. Haykulim Zacharim, they all turned out to be male children. And all the male children were named after Rabbi Loza bar Rab Shimon. So Tanya, we're going to end off over here. Amar Rebbe. Rebbe said that wife who did not allow Rabbi Loza bar Rab Shimon to show up to the base medrash because he was sickly, but look what he did. She kama piriyavia bitl rishazu Yisrael. This wife, this Russia, they call her a Russia, I don't know, was mavato how much piriyavia. Had Rabbi Loza bar Rab Shimon came to shul more often, many women would have been permitted to be with their husband. And sometimes the rabbi on call would say, oh, you can't be with your husband because it might be dam nida you're showing me. And here, Rabbi Lazar ben Shimon was so certain in his psak that it's not dam nida. And because of that, a lot of children were born. Okay, we'll stop over here. It's a fascinating Gemara because the Gemara is going to tell us in a few lines how Rabbi Lazar ben Shimon never really passed away. Okay, this is a long daf tomorrow. All right.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I might go a little bit over tomorrow, so
Okay.
like 30,
No problem.
40 minutes. Okay.